A fan-made video creates opening credits for Dune in the style of Game of Thrones' famous intro. The visual style of the Dune introduction aligns with Villeneuve's films, featuring iconic music and locations. A riveting intro could make HBO's Dune Prophecy the next Game of Thrones, grounding the complex sci-fi universe for audiences. Dune gets a Game of Thrones-style intro in a stunning new video. Every Game of Thrones episode opened with an introduction sequence in which important locations on the map of Westeros and Essos were constructed in a compelling visual style, often teasing where the episode's key storylines would take place. The Game of Thrones spin-off series House of the Dragon has continued this tradition with an introduction rendered in the same style and featuring the same iconic music by composer Ramin Djawadi. Inventor Headquarters has created a Dune introduction video in the Game of Thrones style, featuring important locations from the story, including Caladan, Arrakis, Jade Prime, and Seleucia Secundus. Check out the video below. The introduction aligns with the tone of Denis Villeneuve's Dune films by incorporating Hans Zimmer's musical score, along with featuring ornithopters and other visual elements that match the film's aesthetic. It is further completed with Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, and the rest of the cast and creators' names being displayed throughout the sequence. Dune Prophecy needs an intro that rivals Game of Thrones. As one of HBO's biggest upcoming series, the prequel spin-off Dune Prophecy needs to have an intro sequence as impressive as what Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon have. The video above makes a compelling argument for having an introduction created through Game of Thrones' visual style. It features the same ambitious scale and sense of immersion that Game of Thrones has while still feeling distinct through its own music and visuals. Visually portraying each episode's locations before the episode will help make the science fiction universe more accessible, especially since Dune Prophecy's timeline sets it 10,000 years before Dune, and will need to be grounded in a way that can be understood by mainstream audiences. It feels even more expansive than Game of Thrones' opening credits, as it not only depicts a single fantastical world, but rather an entire universe and the numerous planets that inhabit it. From the introduction alone, there is a clear sense of how each planet has its own aesthetic, culture, and climate. Such exploration will be an even more integral part of Dune Prophecy than it was in Villeneuve's films, with the majority of Dune's story taking place on the world of Arrakis. Dune Prophecy would likely need to make more changes to ensure that its introduction is clearly distinguishable from Game of Thrones, but the basic premise can remain the same. Visually portraying each episode's locations before the episode will help make the science fiction universe more accessible, especially since Dune Prophecy's timeline sets it 10,000 years before Dune, and will need to be grounded in a way that can be understood by mainstream audiences. A riveting introduction sequence could help Dune Prophecy potentially become the next Game of Thrones.